Is the biggest abortion case in the Trump presidency, and in a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court struck down a Louisiana law that critics argued was meant to limit abortions. Chief Justice John Roberts sided with the liberal judges, and reaction from both sides was quick and impassioned.
Hey, hey, ho, ho.
As protesters demonstrated in front of the Supreme Court, the justices struck down a Louisiana law requiring abortion doctors have admitting privileges to nearby hospitals. That could have shut down all clinics here but one, and the court decided that would deny access to a right protected under Roe v. Wade.
I am proud to be a pro-life Democrat.
State lawmaker and lawyer Katrina Jackson from Monroe authored the law and blasted the court.
As long as the Supreme Court continues to meddle in an area that rightfully belongs in the democratic process, women will remain subject to substandard abortion facilities.
But Planned Parenthood of the Gulf Coast said today is a victory for Louisianians, especially Black and brown communities who face overwhelming barriers to health care.
It is alarming.
And the head of the National Center for Reproductive Rights added, Louisiana lawmakers should be addressing these ingrained inequities rather than taking people's rights away. State Senator and chair of the Louisiana Democratic Party, Karen Carter Peterson, also applauded the court, saying it saw the law for what it is, red tape aimed at closing clinics and pushing abortion out of reach.
It's very disappointing to see the Supreme Court add to the misguided legacy of Roe v. Wade.
Protect women!
And those who support the pro-life agenda say they'll keep working to fight it.
Among them, Senator Bill Cassidy, a doctor. He condemned the court's decision, saying women who use a clinic without hospital admitting privileges are in danger of complications and death should the procedure go badly. The Supreme Court ensured this danger remains.